Did we lose the Grant again? Oh, Grant is here. Grant, yep, go ahead, Grant.
I'm here. I'm here.
Okay, we are live.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Today, we want to explore how AI and strategic partnerships are reshaping local government.
Okay, I think we are losing Grant.
Are we not?
Grant, yes, we lost you.
Pretty sure I'm back, right?
Yes, yes, you are back now.
Oh, I'm having a real issue with the internet right now, right?
Yep, yep.
But I think I'm back. Can you guys hear me again?
So we can hear you.
Yes.
All right. Hopefully, it'll stay stable here for a second. But we want to get Tamika McKay introduced. She is a nationally recognized IT leader and former CIO of City of Fort Lauderdale and a recipient of the prestigious Orby Award for Technology Leadership. And with over 25 years of public sector experience, she has led Fort Lauderdale through major.
Okay, I think we are.
Uh-oh. Lost them again.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on, but I want to be able to get introduced Roanoke so we can begin our discussion intact. Hopefully, we'll stay up. I don't know what the deal is, but we have Tamika. She's going to be talking, and then Roanoke Shaw is the CEO and co-founder of Agile Infoways, a global technology firm specializing in custom software development and AI interact. This is going to be a interesting discussion today with this.
Grant, maybe turn your camera off and just do the audio. See if that will help.
Yeah, maybe we'll do that.
Are you speaking?
Is that any here?
Yeah, Grant, we can hear you now. Oh.
I wonder if it's the weather, if he's using a satellite.
Yep, yep, yep.
We have really bad weather in South Florida.
Yep.
Well, at least in Broward
Oh
County.
yeah. Today is really bad day here in Coral Springs as well. Tamika,
Oh, that's right.
yeah, Tamika, if we want, we can even get the discussion started between you and me
Yeah, let's do that.
until the Grant joins back in. So there were a number of things that we can discuss more about your city stuff. If you wanted to get something started by yourself, and then I can tell you how, as a vendor or technology company, how we help in the crisis to the city or similar organizations. But if you want to get something started by yourself in the beginning, because I remember
Sure. Well,
you have like,
as Grant shared,
yeah,
I led the city of Fort Lauderdale and the CIO role for almost 3 years, started in 2021 as the director of infrastructure and operations. And within a year was appointed to the CIO role, which I was expecting somewhat of a honeymoon for that first year, but that's not exactly what I got. So in my first year at CI, as a matter of fact, I started officially in August. That's December. we had a citywide file server outage, and it was an SMB update patch from Microsoft, which broke all the connections to the file servers. 3 months later, we had a major network outage. We had a backbone switch just totally take a dump, took the entire network down. And then the following month, we had the 1 in 1,000 year flood, which took the entire city hall down. So yeah, 6 to 7 months on the job, first time CIO wasn't really what I had in mind. But there's a saying that says hardship builds character,
There
right?
you go.
So I look back at those days. I'm sure I didn't feel that way at that time. Oh, by the way, the flood happened on April 12th. And on April 18th, my family was throwing a surprise 50th birthday party for me with family members coming from all over the country. So, yeah, it was very, very interesting time. But I can say that there are several things I think that were factors in allowing us to navigate a very, very difficult time. What probably could have been a lot worse. Several factors went into play with that. And I would say one is those relationships, those vendor relationships, those relationships of colleagues, the relationships that have been built over the years where you can call people and people want to help you and they want to see you successful. And maybe they may not have the answer for you, but they know someone else who knows someone else. And that whole network of just bringing those resources in. So that was one. The other is establishing a people first environment because when I first started with the city of Fort Lauderdale, the IT department was very fractured, very disconnected. A lot of folks were just disengaged and really just not necessarily interested in being innovative or creative or being part of a team. And, in addition to the enormous technology debt, just coming out the gate, we put together a 3 year plan, although, we didn't anticipate the flood as being part of that 3 year plan. But being able to put that plan together and set those goals and say, okay, this is where we want to be in 3 years, and here are the steps that we want to take to get there, and here are the strategic priorities. Having that outline, and even, some people might look at the plan and say, hey, that's terribly ambitious and you're not going to be able to accomplish that, and maybe you don't accomplish everything, but there's another saying that says you reach for the moon, and if you don't make it, you'll be amongst the stars. So I think those three items were really critical in allowing us to navigate three major disruptions in a very short amount of time, and not only manage and navigate it, but thrive, use it as a springboard to push and expedite the city's digital transformation. And that's exactly what we did.
Super, super, Tamika. So what I understand is, it's all about your relationship with the vendors that you mentioned. In the bad time, the people who are really strong with the relationships gonna come and help you out. And then what I understood is your internal team had a lot of kind of a fragmented, disconnected, and that's a very, very essential part. So as we basically act as a vendor, we are a company with a global presence in US and India and several offices across the world. And being a CEO of this company, we also have to be very careful when we start building the relationship with any kind of organization, whether it's a city government or any big large companies that we are dealing with, because there are times of crisis we have seen. And there are this even city, even the city of Atlanta, other areas that where we have worked, have so much of legacy systems, and
Mhm.
that's very, very
Yes.
important. So the way we manage the whole work is, first step is to understanding their legacy landscape. We do a lot of detailed assessment and audit. We deep dive into their existing legacy system. We try to understand their technologies, what data flows they are using, what kind of integration points are there, or what kind of dependencies are there. And the most important part is the working very closely with the stakeholders. stakeholders, so we engage with their end users, department heads, and IT staff. We try to understand the real pain points, whether it's a slow performance, data silos, or security gaps, or even the integration is not there, so we keep all these things in mind, and then we start designing these solutions, like we have to understand when we are even designing the solution, every industry that we deal with has a different compliance, so even let's say if we are dealing
Right.
government, they have a FedRAMP, or then we have
Right.
PA and GDPR, or even they have a local digital governance mandates that are given to us. So we have to be very, very
Right.
careful. And when we design this solution, they're kind of mission driven. We don't really go and design the solutions. We are trying to see, okay, if we gonna tailor the solution, are we improving the citizen engagement? Are we improving the operational efficiency for the city? Or cost reduction are we bringing on the table? So we design these solutions keeping a lot of mission in the mind, and then we usually take the phased approach. So we do not believe in rip and replace. We don't do full rip and replace. We do an
No, no shock and all.
we do like a very offer gradual transition. We introduce the microservice
Yes.
architecture, API structures, and
Yeah.
we go as a phased approach,
Yes.
because the very important part is
Hmm.
the interoperability has to be there. So when we have these new solutions that are coming up, they have to work alongside with the legacy system, because we want to minimize the downtime or any kind of service disruption when we are bringing the new systems in place. And then we work with the city or whatever the people very closely in terms of the cloud adoption. Like we have to leverage their private or hybrid or even government authorized cloud companies or platforms to enhance the scalability in the or even the disaster recovery. Also we work very closely in terms of the cybersecurity side. So we deploy usually zero trust models, which with endpoint protections and continuous monitoring in place. Now building the capacity within the agency is also very, very important. We are building these whole solutions, but what happens at the time of disaster or anything, so training is a key. So we train the public sector employees, we manage, we maintain the new systems for them. We also hold a lot of workshops, so collaboration on the solution that are being designed by companies like us. We want to make sure that we get enough buy-in from the employees, from the city. That's very,
Well,
yeah.
you brought up a lot. Okay, you covered a lot of ground there, but I would say as complex as our world is,
Hmm.
it can be quite simple.
Yes.
It's what matters, what's important, and what's important and what matters is going to look differently to different people at different
Yep. Yep.
times, because what matters and what's important today may be different a year from now. So what I'm still learning, I'm not going to say I'm a master at it, but what I'm learning in my CIO role, and this was a transition for me, because I grew up, I'm a server bug, right? I grew up, stacking and racking, putting cables in, crawling under desks, and configuring routers, so that was my world. And for many years I never had much concern about what was going on in the business. It was just keep the network up. Well, that's no longer the CIO role.
Yep.
We really have to be plugged in to the organization, plugged into those stakeholders, and in some cases we have to be politically astute. I had never had any interest on what happened in Tallahassee with House bills until House Bill 7055 in Florida, where it was illegal for city local governments to pay ransomware, right? And then the cybersecurity grants. I didn't even care what a lobbyist was until we had to come together and get one to make sure that we got those cybersecurity grants in the budget for the state. So I say all that to say that the CIO role has changed. And those who do not take that time to invest in that business acumen, that building those relationships, building those bridges, bringing the right people in the room at the right time, and seeking first to understand before being understood will not be, well, they may be
Yep.
okay, but they won't be transformational. Put it that
Very
way. They
true.
won't be
Very true.
transformational. So what you just said, um, all of those different topics And I would bring, I remember a conversation I had with my former city manager. I put together the 3-year plan, what I wanted to do in year 1, year 2, year 3. And I was so proud of it. I walked in the office just so proud of my presentation, and I went through it, and he let me go through it. He didn't interrupt me. He let me finish. And then he sat back and said, okay, if I'm a taxpayer, what does any of that mean to me? And I just kind of looked at him like, you weren't impressed by all these numbers and all of this stuff that I did, and the uptime and the servers and the this and the that. And I realized at that time that all of that technical jargon and all of those, zero trust, and we're going to do this and they're going to means a lot to us because we're geeks, right? We're propeller heads. But to the stakeholders, to the ones who we are delivering services to the ones who will make decisions on whether or not those initiatives get funded, that stuff's mean absolutely nothing. So what I had to do, I had to learn, and I want to give credit to my colleague Angela Marinas. I brought her on as my assistant director, and to be honest with you, there are many people who question me, why are you bringing her on? She's she was known as the ERP lady because she was the program manager for the ERP migration. But she's gifted in translating technology initiatives into business outcomes and what it matters. And that's not an area that I had really been trained on. Like I said, I grew up in the server room,
Yep.
right? So I saw that in her, and I said, that's who I need to help me drive this transformation. And that was the best decision that I made, because I can tell you for 3 years in a row, we had asked for funding to upgrade our payroll system, which was probably over 10 years old. It was in such a bad state that we literally had to partition it off, segment it
Wow.
off in the network just to secure it. And unsuccessfully for 2 years in a row, I asked for funding to upgrade that, and I didn't get it. You know when I got it? When my colleague Angela did a calculation on what it was costing, the soft costs, because people forget about the soft costs, right?
Yep.
The soft costs of having folks spend 15 minutes to log into a jump server, to log into the other server, to clock in and clock out, multiply that by the average person's salary over a year's time. When she put that number in place, the response was, where do we sign to get this upgraded now? Don't even wait till the next fiscal year. Let's do it now. So that was a defining moment. I mean, I knew it, but it was really just drove the point home that I love tech. I love tech talk. I love my nerds. I love my propeller heads. But if I want to be effective, if I want to drive change, if I want to drive transformation, if I want to move the needle, I've got to be able to translate the technology investments into business outcomes, and I have to speak the language of the stakeholder. And that may be different,
Yep.
because the items that I'll bring up when I'm speaking to the police chief may be different than when I speak to the public works director, speak their language. And that means I've got to take time to learn their world. What appeals to them? What's important to them? How can I relate that to technology? And when I do that, the sky is the limit. But the other thing is not only speaking the language, it's really understanding what those priorities are and having the support at the top, because you can push a topic or a strategic plan as much as you want. But if that does not align with leadership, you're going to be a hamster in a wheel. There's a saying, and I'd love to give credit to whoever it is. I don't know who said it. It says, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So I don't care how good your strategy is. I don't care how great those phases are, those milestones, those outcomes. If the
Yep.
culture doesn't lend itself to and the leadership doesn't lend itself to, this is what we're driving for. And if you're not able to communicate, hey, I need to do this to get here in an effective way, then you're not going to be as effective.
Well,
Right.
you said a lot, and I think I'm with everybody now. And I said we're going to have some fun. And we're having fun right now in the technological world. So I had to switch to my mobile But I'm getting very, very stable right now. And I've been listening in. You guys just took it and ran. I really like that. That shows resilience. And I could tell that I could see how you got to that 50-year flood. She said, well, we got we got to swift, you got to make your shifts when you need to. Now, this is interesting because I think she has really laid out the framework where we want to talk about it. I'm going to switch this over to Rona because this is important. When you're doing business with the city, they do have constraints when it comes to budget, and they've got to work with vendors that understand that have alignment around it, right? So I'm going to ask Rona, what does it mean when lean but effective? What does that actually look like when you're implementing something as robust as AI or ERP? Can you answer that for us, Rono?
Yeah, sure, sure. So, I first of all, very important part is we have to prioritize the simplicity and usability of anything that we are designing. Anything that solutions that are being designed, there should be no steep learning curves. We believe in the very clean user interfaces, intuitive workflows. Even we have to, for the city or any kind of people that we work with, and we have to have a pre-configured templates for them, or sometimes drag and drop interfaces to make their life very, very easy. And also at the same time, we focus on modular deployment. So we break large system into kind of bite-sized, independently deployable modules. And we try to deliver the values fast with the MVPs, like minimum viable products, or with the microservice architecture. So that's very, very important. Apart from that, providing a hands-on support is very, very important. You're not just a software vendor. You have to build a relationship for the interoperability as well. So making sure the solutions that we design, they really plug and play with their existing systems. That's a key to the success. Now, automating the routine tasks are very, very important. So like we try to incorporate automation for patching, any kind of reports or alerts that are being generated. So a lot of automation through AI and machine learning is very, very important. Now, if we come to the AI implementation, I want to address both AI implementation and ERP, because both are being deployed in a lot of cities across the United States. First of all, in the AI implementations, what are the goals? What are you trying to achieve by AI? Are you improving the citizen service delivery model? Are you automating the manual tasks that city employees are doing? Or are you trying to get the insights from the government data? Where are you implementing the AI? So when you do the use case prioritization, start with like high impact, low risk use cases. So for example, call center automation, or document classification, or maybe fraud detection sometimes. Now we design these models, keeping the ethical things are very, very important, because yes, definitely when we design this AI model, we are using the data that is we have got from the city. Now this data could have even bias in it, so we have to have a bias testing in place, because the data has a bias, AI model is also going to give you the results with the bias. So it's very, very important, to have the bias testing in the AI model, audit trails. And the model that we design, this AI model, has to be explainable. So we use XAI, where the models can be explained. We ensure that there is a compliance with the government AI ethics policies, because they also have policies that we have to keep it in mind. Now, when we design this model, the most important part is the data. So we have to assess the quality of data, make sure that the accessibility is given to the model with the governance in place. And now also secure data pipelines has to be designed, because we have to encrypt this data while we are accessing the data. So once the model is designed, now model validation starts. So we have to use special sandbox environment for model training, and then we validate these models using the historical and synthetic data sets to make sure this model is going to work properly. And then we integrate the model with the APIs within the existing system. And then the whole training and change management starts. We have to train the government employees on AI decision making support, how this AI decision made this report. And then we have to have a human in the loop as well, because we don't want AI to take over the human's decision as well. So human collaboration is very, very important, because in next few years intervention is very much important, because they still are not able to trust the models so much. So we have to keep a lot of things in mind when we deploy these large AI models. Now, in terms of the ERP modernization that is going on everywhere, the way Tamika explained, they were using 10
Mhm.
years old payroll. This ERP modernization is part of either you're upgrading their finance systems or HR or their procurement systems, whatever it may be. So a lot of strategic assessment we as a vendor have to do. We have to analyze their legacy ERP footprint, what are their pain points, and then
Mhm.
we have to go with the compliance needs at the same time. And then very much important is the stakeholder engagement, which I and Tamika discussed of
Mhm.
the very close engagement with their team. We have to do a lot of workshops. We have to do cross department steering committee formation and like that. And then we usually choose the platform. Anything that we're going to design, are we going to have it in the cloud support, mobile application support? Are we doing only SaaS first, software as a service platform? What are the things that we are doing? And then we have to consider data migration strategy, because you still have to migrate the data from legacies to the newer system that you are implementing. So you still want to clean the old data, make sure you remove the duplication out of it, and then map that legacy data with the newer system that you're designing. So we use automated ETL pipelines for phase migrations as well. And the most important part is the integration architecture. So build the APIs for intersystem communications with the modern ERP, and ensure the compatibility with the existing tools, like GIS or payroll or document management. So these are the different ways where vendors should plan their AI implementation, ERP modernization. There are so much of deep dive into this area, but I want to respect the time here to cover up this part for now.
No, no, you're everything you're talking about. I'm sure, especially from Tamika's viewpoint, you want to make sure that your vendors know what they're doing, and they have a process and a proven methodology as to how they'll be able to, transverse complex systems, because there's a lot of complexities in a lot of these systems, a lot of integration. Now, before this talk or this call, I had talked to Tamika about vendor relationships is so important, especially in the city. When you're dealing with a government entity, it's a different world than if you're dealing with a private entity or an enterprise or whatever it may be. So the question for you, if you can educate our audience around this a little bit, is what should private sector partners understand about working with city governments?
Oh, thank you for asking me that. We didn't really start in the normal way, so I do want to just take a moment to thank you, Grant, and your team for this opportunity to share my thoughts. Thank you for inviting me to speak to your audience, and I don't take it lightly. And I hope that we can have some mutually beneficial conversations here. The second thing I want to say is my thoughts and expressions are those of my own. They are not the city of Fort Lauderdale. I do not speak on behalf of the city of Fort Lauderdale. I am speaking as an IT professional. And I just want to get that out of the way. Um, Before I answer your question, though, I had wrote down something as Ronak was speaking. And as you were going through those different portions of integration and automation and data governance, one thing stood out to me that all of those have to tie back to, and that's organizational change. I think sometimes as technologists, we take organizational change for granted. And
Yep.
really, the technology part is easy. It's ones and zeros. It's write a PO, your boss approves it, call your vendor, and you order it. That organizational change and that human factor and that challenging the status quo and asking people who have been doing something the same way for sometimes 10, 15, 20 years and have literally defined themselves and their careers around it, asking them to think differently about the way they do their jobs, about the way they maybe quantify their value to the organization. Them there be fighting words for some people. I do want to make sure that we don't overlook
Yep.
that, because AI is fantastic, automation is fantastic, modernization is fantastic. But if you don't have the buy in, and if people aren't understanding that the modernization is not going to be a threat to them as a person, as a professional, right? And that learning something new, yeah, sometimes it's a little scary. And yeah, you might lose that confidence that you've had because you're the man. Everybody comes to you when they need to access that system. Yeah, you might lose that. You have to find a way to assure and affirm those folks that, listen, this is going to be good for you. We want you to succeed, and this is not going to take away your job. This is going to free you up for something else. And you would be surprised the level of Dr. Phil that has to go into your role in driving that. So I just wanted to take a minute to talk about that, because that can make or break you. There are folks that have, sometimes dysfunctional power structures in an organization, and they can withhold information. They can sabotage. They can be your friend or they can be your foe. And that's why I believe in that people first mentality. Get the people right, get them supported, get them appreciated, get them engaged, and they will go and drive and execute your vision. So to answer your question about those vendor relationships, one thing that came to mind earlier when we was knowing your audience, right? Every city, yeah, there's some things that are the same across public sector, but every city is different. The leadership is different, the culture is different, the priorities are different. How they deal with change and modernization, do they don't I worked in an organization where the motto was, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? And if you were coming up with ideas, you were looked at as a troublemaker. And I've actually had folks tell me, "Oh, you don't have enough work to do. Why do you keep bringing up stuff in the meetings?" Right? So I think knowing the audience, knowing where and when to push versus when to go slow, is a big deal. And from a vendor standpoint, do your homework. What are the organizational priorities? I know for the city of Fort Lauderdale, the commission meets every year and they establish what the priorities are for that year. If I'm the CIO at Fort Lauderdale and you're calling me, you better know what those are before you pick the phone up and call me. And you better speak to those when you talk to me. Otherwise, you're probably wasting my time and your time. So knowing what those are, the relationship part, that's I'm very big on that. I tell my vendors all the time, I don't want to see and hear from you only when it's time to renew the contract, right? And some vendors are better at that than others. But the ones that make sure they reach out, hey, are you aware of this feature? Are you getting this value out of it? Let's assess your environment and see where you could be moving more. Those are the vendors that I appreciate doing business with and want to continue establishing a long-term relationship with. So that's important. So doing your homework, knowing what the organization's priorities and challenges are, showing up not just when it's time to renew the contract, or not just when budget season is about to kick off. That's important. And believe it or not, as much of a technologist that I am, I'm a public servant at heart. I wake up every day. How can I improve life, or how can I improve the quality of life for at the time when I was the CIO for the city of Fort Lauderdale, for the residents of Fort Lauderdale? So partner with me. I had a vendor who said, listen, we're glad that you have agreed to be a keynote speaker at our executive roundtable. Well, we want to support a local non-for-profit community. And I was thrilled. So I reached out to my commissioner. I said, hey, one of the districts that has the most needs and, the most underserved communities. And I said, hey, one of our vendors is looking to partner and do something for a non-for-profit. They recommended KP Cares Foundation, which is a foundation that provides financial literacy training for underserved youth. most of those youth come from families where they have a negative experience with finances. And we were able to bridge that relationship between the city, between the non-for-profit organization and our vendor, and gifted 20 laptops, 20 Chromebooks to the students of that program. And that was a wonderful story. Our commissioner came in and we took a picture, and it was just a wonderful story. So to me, being invested in not just, like I said, renewing that maintenance contract, but in the community and what those pain points for the organization and knowing what those challenges are, that speaks a lot to me about the vendor relationship and my choice to have a long-term relationship with that particular vendor.
Man, that's a great
So I hope that
story.
helps.
No, that helps a lot. It goes a long way. I love how you just said, at the end of the day, I'm a public servant. I am here to serve the population. And if I can partner with somebody that has that same vision, then not just be performative, but actually, do some work. Let's get out here and make some changes. I think that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to bring this over to
Thank you.
Roanoke as well, because this is important, because he represents the vendor community at this particular point on this particular webinar. But there are missteps that, take tech companies make, when entering the public sector. Not only do you work in the US, but you work around the globe. How can tech companies build more a lasting impact or lasting trust, in your opinion?
Yeah, so this is an amazing question, Grant, because I've been running this company for almost 19 years now, and then before that, I did about 10 years large implementation with huge companies like Charles Schwab and Citibank and like that, and so there was a time where I used to work as an employee where somewhere the vendors were coming to us, when I used to work for Charles Schwab or Citibank. And now for 19 years, I run this whole big technology company across. We have clients in Dubai, Singapore, and different parts of the world. And now we go as a vendor. So these are some of the mistakes I would say as a vendor we cannot do it. First is there cannot be ever an all over promise or oversell. Don't, like, some of the times I've seen as a vendor, they claim the capabilities that they do not even have. You cannot do that anymore. That time is gone. So, and avoid any kind of exaggerating timelines. You have to be very careful when you're giving the whole roadmap for implementation, because honesty builds the trust. It's a long term association. Like, otherwise the first time if you make or you break that trust, you're done. Now, very important part is, never underestimate the complexity of the legacy system, because any of those larger implementations which we are working on, we always are dealing with some kind of legacy system, because legacy system often could have compliance issues. It could even have legal issues, or there are so many constraints that we need to understand as a vendor. So we have to consider all this in mind when we are designing the whole roadmap for the implementation or giving the timelines as well. Now, as a vendor, very important part is we we do not only have to focus on the features or tech specs. That's one part of it, because very important part is the government teams or this kind of organizations, they care about the community outcomes. Tamika did raise this even in the past conversation. Like, we are doing all this crazy tech implementation and the features that we are implementing, but what is it bringing out to my taxpayers? That's the very, very important part. So you want to make sure that the community outcomes are very important when you're designing anything, as even innovation or something. Now, do not make any assumptions for technical maturity, because it could be halfway, midway, or full legacy system. You never know. And you have to make sure that CTIT teams, they do need support. They what I've seen is this organizations or this kind of organization, they look for simplicity, not complexity. So don't try to make it more complex or show huge technical innovation. Rather, bring it more as an outcome. And another part, as a vendor, there cannot be ever a hidden fees, or any kind of vague estimate. You cannot have vague estimates, because it's a government. You're dealing with an entity where nothing is allowed like that. You have to be very upfront about the total cost of ownership or something like that. And another part what we have seen is vendor. Okay, because I have seen when I was on the other side, when I was not a vendor, like vendors, they come, they work, and then they disappear. Tamika already brought that up. They come only at the time of renewal. So when I have learned that model, that we cannot have drop and run delivery model, we
Mm.
have a post implementation partner and support partner, which is very very important. Otherwise, it's a one time contract. You are done forever. And that's why all of the clients that we deal with, they are in the journey between 7 to 14 years with us, because it's a relationship. It's kind of one team. We don't really feel now as a vendor. We work as a one team with them. We work with this large healthcare companies or legal companies, and we work. So that's very very important. So these kind of different things that vendors should avoid while dealing with the government sector.
Man, this is interesting information. I love the full transparency, and I love the opportunity for alignment, between the city governments and vendor relationships, and understanding what really truly comes out as the true outcome of what we're really trying to accomplish at the end of the day, because it's tough work, right? And so my question now for Tamika is around this future, because AI is a game changer. Artificial intelligence is a game changer for everybody. You can't, it's very hard to say it's not going to affect you. It's just how it's going to affect you, right? So looking ahead, I want to know what excites you most, or concerns you most about the role of AI in municipal and cities IT departments.
Yeah. Well, a lot of things concern me, but a lot of things also excite me. I think most IT leaders in the public sector should start first with what are we trying to solve, right? We remember when cloud was a buzzword and the internet, and don't get caught up in the buzzwords, AI. What are we trying to solve? Are we trying to solve homelessness? Are we trying to reduce crime? Are we trying to reduce the time it takes to get a permit? Start with that, and I believe starting with a focus group. So let's number this. So one, I would say, what are we trying to solve? We're not just going to get AI just for AI purpose. Oh, it sounds cool. The other city's doing it, right? The second thing I would say is that community engagement, right? So a focus group, right? Get people in the room, because if you come up with this masterpiece, but it doesn't matter and it doesn't resonate and it doesn't do anything, then it's not going to be effective. Just like the example I shared earlier, when I was so proud of my 3-year plan and my presentation, and at the end of the day, my city manager was like, "Okay, if I'm a taxpayer, what does that mean?" It means absolutely nothing, right? So being able to bring folks in to say, "Okay, what are your pain points?" If you're the Parks and Rec director, my pain point is, I need to be able to know right away when the street lights are out, and I don't want to have to spend money on an FTE to drive up and down the streets just to mark when they're out. What can AI do some predictive analysis? Can sensors do it? Right. So if I come talking to the Parks and Rec director about the technology, not going to go anywhere. But if I say, hey, that problem that you brought up about the lights being out and then it impacting public safety and so on and so forth, now I have their attention. So that engagement, steering committee, I think Ronak had mentioned that, is going to be important. And then I guess the third is guardrails, right? So you need to engage your legal department. You need to engage your risk manager. You need to find out what's going on in the industry as far as, and the beauty of public sector is we all share information. I was at a conference some months back, and I believe out in California, they have a whole coalition of folks that work together on defining and designing what those guardrails look like for local government. And maybe there's something here on the East Coast that I may not be aware of, but obviously those guardrails are going to be important. And I speak about guardrails as a very high level because underneath that, there's many different topics. There's that education and awareness. I spoke to one of our the mayor's assistant a while back, and he shared with me that, hey, when I thought of AI, I just thought of ChatGPT, but he went to a conference where he saw that it would literally schedule all the
Mhm.
meetings and do administrative tasks. Now he's interested. Before it was just a nice to have, right? So that education, what it can do, the value of it, because then that will hopefully address some of the fears. There's a lot of folks in government that will just shut it down. No AI, that's it. And I think they may be taking that stance because there's a lack of awareness of what it can do from a productivity standpoint, as long as you have the right guardrails. So you've got to, bring both of those in. So what did I say? Number one was, what are we trying to solve? Number two was that community engagement and that input from the stakeholders. And number three was getting in those
Man,
guardrails.
you can't even
Hopefully I
add
answered
on to
that
that. I mean,
sufficiently.
that's where we are at, but we can't not, as a society, deny what this technology is can will do.
No, we
Can
can't.
you just can.
No, we can't. As a matter of fact, I think I heard someone said um, AI is not going to take away people's jobs, but people who use AI are going to take away the jobs of people who
Mm,
don't. So I think that was, I think I heard that at a women's conference. But I think it's very powerful because I don't think that we need to walk around thinking, okay, AI is going to take over the world, because AI still doesn't have empathy. And there are things that we have as human beings that are unique to us and us alone. We're created in the image of
yeah,
God, right? So um, AI is going to do some fabulous things for us, but we need to educate ourselves on it. We need to make sure we put in the appropriate guardrails, and we need to start with, what are we trying
I
to
love that.
solve?
I love
I
that.
really strongly believe in that.
I'm with you, and I know Roanoke is sitting there because we have to learn about it's about use cases and what you bring in, like what is it used for. AI is a tool. It's something we can utilize to do something better than we could do it before. AI, the calculator, right?
Right.
So you use it because it can do it faster and better. So when you think about AI use cases that are already making an impact in city environments, and I believe, Roanoke, you may know more about this. Where is the next wave of opportunity, in your opinion?
Yes, 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 sure. So there are so many different. Yeah,
Can
yeah.
I jump
Please,
in?
please. Yeah,
You said I could have fun,
I did.
so nobody should be
yeah, yeah.
upset with me right now. But I mean, I would say, and I didn't see this coming. If you asked me this maybe 3 months ago, my answer would have been different. But with everybody talking about an expected, recession and some of the impacts of some of our policies, a lot of folks in government, they either have already been given the directive to cut back, or they've already have started cutting back. So I would say that coupled with that, this is a unique opportunity for public sector technologists to lean in. If we're talking about doing more with less, if we're talking about automating, if we're talking about using AI to become more productive, what better excuse do we need now to say, hey, we want to cut back, we want to do more with less. Hey, let's take it. All those folks out there who said no AI and they totally shut the door, this is a perfect opportunity to open up those conversations based on the current climate that we're in. And again, going back to what I said earlier, being able to translate technology investments into business
Mm,
outcomes and speaking to the business where they are, and that's going to look different to a CFO than it will to a police chief or to a utilities director, right? Being able to speak to their specific challenges and pain points and how AI can help. I think it's a fabulous opportunity. And again, this is really what's defined my life the past 3 years, taking advantage of disasters and really difficult things, and not only navigating through them, but using them as opportunities to
love
thrive.
it.
So I hope you're not too upset with me,
No, no,
Ronald,
no.
from cutting you off, but I
This
just
is
had to let that
perfect. This is perfect. This is what we wanted to hear. And I wanted to even back up what you said, like how AI is helping all the different cities. There are so many implementations are in going in places where even we are involved in some of the implementation. Like I want to cover some of the real world case studies in the city side. Like AI is being used for building safety now. Like, so a lot of predictive analysis going on right now, where they exactly know if there is a fire issues or there could be a structural failures in this kind of buildings. Now because of that, the inspection procedures are much more smarter, and they're able to catch the violations 5 times faster and more effectively. So now you can think of this AI for building safety is going to be great. Remember, a couple of years back we had
Right.
this huge problem in Miami, the whole 20-30 story building that collapsed and all these things. Now we can avoid all those by using this AI. Now even the in the traffic
Mhm.
management, there is a smart traffic management which is in being implemented in number of cities,
Right.
which reduces the traffic congestion. The traffic times are being reduced. It really adjusts the signal timings, by the real time data. They exactly collect how many cars are standing there, and they change from green to red to whatever the different colors based
Mhm.
on. So this really allows you to go much faster and reduce your travel time. So smart traffic
Right.
management could be the best. AI for crime, like they really now using AI for crime
Yep.
forecasting. They exactly know what kind of people are allocated or what kind of people are living in this area, and they AI knows their past history, and they can really predict. It's a predictive
Trends. Yep.
analytics that these are the things that's going to
Mm.
happen in the next 3 months or 6 months based on the people living in this area. So they based on that.
Well, there's another. And I don't know all the specific details, but my colleague over in Coral Gables,
Mm.
Raymundo, the CIO for Coral Gables, he had shared with us how they used AI. I think it was Calle. They had the big event, and a special needs child was lost. Nobody knew where the child was. And traditionally, you would have all hands on deck. You'd call all the officers. Everybody would be looking for the child. Well, because of AI and the facial recognition, they were able to use cameras to find that child, I believe, in less than three
Wow.
minutes and return him to his family. So there's so many different reasons. And like I said, well, I didn't say this, but I will say this, that a lot of times government is very
Hmm.
reactive, right? And it's not because we want to be, it's because we have to do more with less. Nobody wants to pay more taxes. So we're constantly having to just go from emergency to emergency, priority to priority. And maybe AI might not have been a priority a year ago, but again, leveraging what's going on right now, what's the topic right now, what's the burning issue right now, leveraging that to forward your organization. And as vendors, you should be thinking about that. Like, wait a minute, okay, if I know that this is a challenge and this is an opportunity that maybe, because CIOs don't know everything. Trust me, our role is just like, we become Dr. Phil, we become budget analyst, we become team player, coach, mentor, bringing people together. We have to, and if you're a city CIO, you've got to learn like 10 different businesses. I've got to learn public safety. I've got to learn parks and rec. I've got to learn utilities and all of those other things. As a vendor, if you want to support a public CIO, keep your ears to the ground on what those challenges
Mm.
are and how those opportunities can really make heroes out of CIOs by
Yeah,
bringing
no,
them
very,
together.
very true.
So,
Yeah, as I
yeah,
said, even in the past, it has to be one team approach. Vendors cannot be vendors forever. If they really want to get a great buy-in from the CIOs, they have to be part of, and they have to be more proactive. Vendor has to be more proactive. Government could be reactive, but we have to be more proactive because we are dealing with a lot of industries and we are designing a lot of AI models with different areas,
mhm,
and that could be some of them could be even used for the city as well. Like for example, there are a couple of case studies that
right,
I wanted to even mention that are being implemented in number of cities. The smart waste collection, these waste
Hmm.
bins using, they're
mhm. I've
exactly,
heard
they're
about
coming as
that. Yep.
AI powered now, and that is cutting the
Mhm.
garbage collection cost by 30% because a lot of route
Wow.
optimization route
Wow.
optimizations are going on right now. Now, if you're less trucks running on the road because you don't need to collect that garbage because of the AI powered waste bins, you are improving the air quality. So it's a
Hmm.
great. Same way with the water leak detections are going on. When you are able to
Yes. Yeah.
find out there are water leaks ahead of time, like you can save millions and of gallons of water per year, because now you have smart IoT sensors in place or whatever. Same way public.
Right. Or
Exactly.
flooding.
Yes.
We've
Flooding,
all
right?
had these challenges, whether it's a flood, and to me, well, we all live in cities. We hear about these things, or we're impacted by these things in the infrastructure. Whether, hey, you know what, the water is bad to drink now. We got to put this information out. And you just said about waste collection. Everyone deals with all these, and then traffic. Man, I know my ears perked out when you said, "Ooh, you can fix the traffic problems." Areas in certain cities that is just sometimes you're like, how do you make sense? So there's a great opportunity for use case. We've only got one more minute here. I wanted to make it just to say, just final thoughts. We can get 30 seconds from each of you. We can conclude.
I would just say relationships are very important in being successful at making a difference and making an impact. And a people first
Mhm.
approach can never steer you
Oh, I
wrong.
love that. I love it. Rono, what do you got
Yeah,
for us?
yeah. So I got the great thing for when you go as a vendor. You cannot be a vendor forever. Can you work as a one team with the city, because very very important. And what we have learned over the years, do not focus discussing about technology and AI implementation. Discuss about the real time case study, what you are bringing to the taxpayers, benefits or profits of money that they are paying to the
Hmm.
city. Talk about the real world. If you give them a real case study, then they would digest, understand, and they'll be ready to invest and work with as a team member. I wanted to give one more quickly. There's a great thing going on the public transportation right now with the AI implementation. AI is able to analyze the real time passengers waiting either at the bus stops or trains, or those are the new implementations which are going on right now. And it is able to improve the bus routing and scheduling, because the models are learning at what point of time how many people are waiting at different time, and they are optimizing the bus routes based on that. So it's gonna bring a lot of efficiency even in the transportation world. I know we have less public transportation in South Florida, but in New York City, they're flooded. Like they're bigger cities, they need huge
Yeah.
transportation help. And so this AI is going to bring huge revolution in next 5 to 10 years. But the great thing that Tamika taught us today was that AI is not going to replace us. If you learn AI, you would replace those people who do not learn AI.
Uh-huh.
Thank you,
Ah,
Tamika. Thank you very
ah.
much for coming on our show today.
Thank you
Thank
for your
you.
service, everything you've done for the community of Fort Lauderdale. That's one of my favorite places to visit, and I have seen such great growth, such great brilliance come out of the city, and I'm sure it will continue to do so. So thank you, and bless you on your new endeavors, and continue to move forward. I want to conclude here. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to all of these types of webinars that we do on a monthly basis with Agile Infoways, because we are looking to how we can impact our community and really understand technology as we move forward. So I want to thank Agile Infoways for continuing these series. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Tamika. Thanks, Grant.
Thank you.